Hello, and welcome back to the Quantum Health Connection podcast. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm your host, Vanessa Baldwin, with my incredible co-host, Heather Crimson. And today we have a fantastic guest with us today. We have Daniel White, who is a nutritionist, a functional medicine coach, a graduate of the Applied Quantum Biology Institute, the founder of Sleep Better, Live Better, awesome, QNTMLY, and just did the CRD challenge, which I have to say was absolutely incredible to see the impact that that's making, and just all of the content that you guys shared there and all the people that you brought together. I mean, honestly, it's amazing work that you're doing. So just so happy to have you here with us today, Daniel.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here with you both.
welcome. So Daniel, I mean, gosh, where to start? Because you're sort of like the man of all things quantum and circadian rhythm with Circadian Rhythm Disruption Challenge that you did. You sort of launched this worldwide movement, so to speak, in helping outreach and reach to people all around the world to bring awareness to and invite people to practice circadian biology, right? Practices that will help up level everyone's health. So, I mean, it's just like, where do we even start? Because you're doing all the things and you know all the science, and it's just phenomenal. But we like to start with, how did you get here? Like, what? How did Daniel, sitting where you're sitting now, talking to us, get here? What's your journey?
How far back do we want to go?
I mean, as far back as you want to tell us.
Okay, let me try and give you the TLDR. Um, I always start like this. So I'm 31 years old. I don't know why that's relevant, but I suppose it gives a bit of context. From the age of about 13 to 16 or 17, I was the poster boy for circadian rhythm disruption. Gaming addict, glued to screens, scared of the sun, never spent that time outdoors, awake until 3, 4 a.m., piling in the deuterium loaded carbs, doing all the things, all the things that one would want to do if you were going to disrupt your mental and physical health to the best of your ability. And I achieved good results with that. Depression,
Mm,
anxiety,
mm,
suicidality. And I guess, now it all makes sense. But at the time, it was confusing. It was isolating. It was difficult. And there weren't really any answers. And the places that I looked for answers were Men's Health magazine, MyFitnessPal,
mhm,
calories, you know,
mhm,
swapping one addiction for another, into the gym. How many calories can I burn every day? How many steps can I do every day? How many
mhm,
ways can I prove that I'm worthy of love?
mhm.
Fast forward a few years, I decided to take a degree in psychology because I realized I had no idea what was going on inside my own mind. I like to say to people, it didn't teach me a lot more about my own mind.
Mhm.
A lot of conflicting theories and perspectives and paradigms when we look at that from a conventional approach. Became really interested and passionate about food and nutrition as a result of the early paleo movement. So I really credit, Mark Sisson, Rob Wolf,
Mhm.
Primal Blueprint, all these kinds of ideas. Went down the keto rabbit hole. Really just, again, swapping addiction for addiction. How rigorous can I be about my nutrition? How much can I quantify? How much can I control and objectify my health behaviors? Um, and one day, my friend asked me to go out for a walk. He said, instead of going to the gym and spending 2 hours in there, why don't we go for a walk down the river? And that walk became a weekly walk. And before I knew it, probably more time spent out in the sunlight had cured me of quite a few things, although I wasn't aware of the circadian and the quantum implications of that at the time. Decided to study a master's in nutrition, really in a very outdated paradigm, but letters and numbers behind the name and understanding of the scientific approach is, applicable more broadly, which was fantastic, and found functional medicine at that point. And I was a lot slimmer, probably quite a lot fitter and healthier. Still had a lot of spiritual issues, I suppose
Mhm.
I could say, going on. Um, but found mind body medicine, began to experiment with meditation, began to appreciate the role of, the toxic burden of our society, both physically and mentally. And so, really, always making improvements, gradually edging forward,
Mm.
but never really like getting to the crux of it, I suppose. And I came back to Guernsey, where I live in the Channel Islands, after spending those 4 years in the UK studying. And I started working as a nutritionist, working in the community, delivering kind of like functional lifestyle medicine like programs, kind of surfing the wave of what I thought was like my ultimate passion and purpose. And
Mm.
then I got hit over the head by a relationship separation and then a career relationship breakdown as well. And I
Mm.
burnt out and I was kind of burning the candle at both ends, escapism at the weekends, trying to just pretend that everything's okay. And decided I need to take a bit of time off really. And one day I was just scrolling Facebook as the majority of the population does, and I came across a post by Nathan Walls. I don't know if any of you know Nathan.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
But yeah, I believe Nathan is or was on the faculty of
Yep.
Quantum Biology Collective, and Nathan was sharing like a quote from Jack, like many people do, and it was in relation to seeing the sunrise, and so piqued my interest. And I was there like, well, I'm not doing a lot else. I could probably get up and watch the sunrise. So started that. Bought my first pair of blue light blocking glasses from Raw Optics, which cost me a small fortune at the time, especially with importation
Yep.
to the UK. And I'm working with lots of clients at this point. And I'm thinking, how am I supposed to convince these people to do this?
Yeah.
And I can't say that I really fell down the quantum rabbit hole at that point. It was more just, morning and evening light, morning and evening light, you know, keep managing my spiritual ailments in the ways that I do. And, things are improving steadily, steadily, steadily. I made a bit of a full circle realization around 3 or 4 years ago when I was doing a business accelerator program, and they were talking to me about my origin story. And, this idea that in order to resonate with an audience or the business that I was, conducting just solely here at the time, beginning to kind of niche in the area of sleep, I guess, I became really fascinated with sleep science. I saw it as a great opportunity to, share really contemporary understandings with people. And it was in these workshops, which really asked me to like dig very deep into myself, into like unacknowledged parts of me, I suppose,
Mm.
where they asked me, like, where did this all begin for you? And I thought it was the day where I walked into high school. I was like very overweight and I saw all these pretty ladies and I thought, wow, I better do something about my health here. But of course it wasn't, it was steeped in the addiction, and it was steeped in the non-stop interaction with technology, light, screens, and frequencies of a non-native fashion. And so I kind of realized that I had a very unique perspective at the age of 13 to 16, 17, because I was the only child that I knew that was suffering so badly at the hands of overexposure to technology and artificial light. And I didn't know what it meant. It felt kind of overwhelming at that point, but I realized that, okay, so maybe I'm here to help people younger. Maybe I'm here to pay it forward or to roll it back or to, pull it up, as we say when I'm out DJing. And made this realization that the children, the future generations are really what I may be able to build kind of like my impact and my legacy and, my mission around. That was affirmed to me in several ways, most bizarrely by a dream that I had about a week later, where I was like stood on a television program talking about this research that we had done, and wasn't quite sure what it meant at the time, but turns out that it was, a kind of destined path to start to use some of these simple tools, things like nighttime blue light blocking glasses, sleep education, circadian health education, to begin to turn the tide, or at least attempt to, as it pertains to like what children are experiencing and what young teenagers are experiencing, which seems to have exponentially exploded, compared to when I was that one kid in class who stayed up all night and did the gaming thing. So fast forward several years, I spent a lot of time initially alone, conducting a research project in Guernsey. I wanted to go into schools. I did it on a very small scale to begin with, about 50 pairs of blue light blocking glasses I gave to some kids, collected some pretty kind of somewhat meaningless data, but it motivated me to drive that further. Then got in touch with Rudy at Viva Rays, who pledged support. We registered a charity, spent about 2 years planning and conducting a research project, which we've actually just published. So maybe we can pop a little link to that in the show notes. We didn't publish it academically. we could have done a little bit better with the data collection. We had some issues with COVID and collecting data and kids being kids like that, but we proved some really strong outcomes, and maybe we can talk a bit more about that in a while. And then thanks to Meredith at QVC, I was invited onto her podcast to talk about that research, and that put me in touch with Sarah Kleiner. And so I appeared on Sarah's podcast, and a few months after that, I was contacted by my now partners, who you guys know well. I believe you've interviewed them on the podcast already, Avi and Lauren. And they got in touch and said, look, we just want to support you. We don't know what that looks like yet, but we have a foundation. We want to help you to get this research paper over the line, because I was really, really struggling with funding at the time. It was kind of a lot of what I had done time-wise was completely self-funded, and even resource-wise for quite a while, but just kind of waking up every day with this vision, like this thing has to happen, it has to happen, whatever obstacles come my way, they will be overcome. And then, the blessing of Avi and Lauren arrived. And so we began about a year ago now, just talking about, how can we improve this? How can we upscale this? How can we make more of an impact with this? Zoom forward another 6 or 7 months, and we meet the wonderful Jeff Gibson, who has this download. You can only describe it as a download for a kind of worldwide awareness campaign, inspired by, although very different from, the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge that was about 10 years ago. It was, let's get millions of people involved. Turns out you're trying to teach people about circadian rhythms and really, go deep on a 3-week education program, which is what we developed in the end. It doesn't spread quite as quickly as the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, but we will get that. And then the last 6 months has really just been absolute dedication from all 4 of us, really. As you mentioned, really our guiding star was wanting to unite the circadian and quantum, you might call it industry or space, where everybody is, emerging from, thanks to organizations such as Quantum Biology Collective and others who are, Carrie Bennett, people like this who are just so phenomenal when it comes to really like enlightening people and bringing them into this sphere of consciousness, right? And so we went out and we developed a very strong vision, I think, and a mission. And thanks to our incredible videographer, a guy called Ewan, we were able to communicate that quite well through a video that we made, where we interviewed a lot of people about circadian rhythm disruption. We should probably tell them what it's called, right? The CRD challenge, the Circadian Rhythm Disruption Challenge. It honestly feels like yesterday that we were just talking about it as a concept, and now it's happened, and it's continually happening because it's a thing that will go on, I hope, indefinitely. And we launched it on the 20th of October, so we had a lot of hype around, and just completely selfless support from the entire community. I'm sure there'll be people who are listening to this who are ambassadors who got involved. I know that both of you are, and really, we absolutely could not have done it without the support of everybody. So we ran a completely organic campaign, and we had about 5,000 people sign up. We took about 3,000 people
amazing.
Our school community, and that was just word of mouth, really, within the space. And as you know, when it comes to algorithms and things like that, circadian, quantum, sunshine tends to get suppressed a little bit
Yes.
in the social media world. So I'm very grateful that we had that number of attendees, and the results of it have been really phenomenal. I think what we've heard back is that it's really helped people to bridge a gap, because a lot of people arrive in this space and they hear Jack Cruz and they hear Carrie and they hear Sarah and they hear other people, they hear you guys, and they're trying to figure out what it's all about. And you take tidbits, and some of it feels overwhelming, so you park that and they're like, I'll come back. I did it right, I'll come back to that in like 3 years when I understand this. What we wanted to do was just synthesize it, simplify it, increase accessibility, and provide like a linear step-by-step journey that was absolutely 100% now and forever free. Because when I look back, I've never believed that the most fundamental information that we need to know as human beings should be locked behind a paywall. And it's difficult, right? Because we all have to make a living in this space. We all have to receive value for the value that we provide, and maybe that's because of the system, and maybe the system will change in the future. But we wanted to be able to do that, and the feedback has been really, really, really good. And most excitingly, it seems that everybody within the space, practitioners, have really continued to get behind it and enjoyed that experience. So it's just the beginning for us in that regard. I told you I'd give you the TLDR. Oh Lord. Yeah, I suppose that's where we've gotten to now. And what's really beautiful now is that as we look forward to 2025 and beyond, obviously we have this shifting political landscape in the US, the land of opportunity, I guess you could call it in that regard. And so like we hope that we can continue to build upon like what we've been called to do, I suppose, and like the message that has been whispered into our ear, so that together as a like collective and as a community, we can start to shout it louder and louder and be heard in more ways.
Wow, that was so incredible. I mean, like, what a journey you've had. And it's like, I think of all the teenage boys, I have teenage boys myself, and what do they all do every single night? They're gaming, they're on the devices, they're up late at night. And it's like, I see it and I keep, reminding and saying and trying to educate and drop my little nuggets, and of course my kids, we have boundaries, but I'm like always trying to teach them all the things. And it's just like, I mean, if we can change the kids, like that hits my heart, because if we can change the kids, we change the future, right? And we change that. And so this doesn't happen, that trajectory of it happened to you doesn't happen in the future, right? But your hardship led you to all the things, the beautiful things that you're doing now. And like all the stars align for you, meeting all these different people and getting involved with some people to make this beautiful, I mean, so many beautiful things you've done, from the research that you've done to now to the CRD challenge. It's like, oh, I just love it all. I mean, I definitely want to dive into the research you did with Viva Rays and in the school communities for sure. Like, I'd love to know more about that and how that went, and yeah, share a little bit about that if you want, or we can do it now, later, but definitely want to touch on that at some point.
Yeah, I'd be really happy to talk about it, and I will, to be honest, like just because I like to pat myself on the back with regards to that research, like that was hard, that was tough, like that was
Yeah,
like
I bet.
years of not knowing where like the next paycheck for the dinner on the table for me and my daughter was, that was that kind of vibe. But since then, I absolutely will refuse to take any credit for anything that's come afterwards, because it's just been such a collective gift,
Mm.
Viva A's and Rudy, be it every single one of the ambassadors that we've had, be it every single one of the people that have come to take part, Jeff, Avi, Lauren. I'd also like to shout out a guy, I'm going to butcher his name now, Zach.
Bush?
Oh,
No.
no, Zach Bush. Oh, I did meet Zach Bush at a festival about 6 months ago. The line
Mhm.
to give him a hug was too long. Zach Dean, who I'm on about. Zach Dean. But yeah, he's on the outskirts of the quantum community. I hope he might hear this one day. Just again, another person who selflessly arrived to provide us with marketing advice and to give, generously to the cause. And every moment of here, it's just been like a web of like energy and inspiration. And
Mm.
I feel very blessed to like, I suppose you could say like collectively we're carrying a torch, and like sometimes I'm holding it and sometimes we're all holding it.
Mm.
Thing is, like, we're all a movement that's moving together.
Yeah.
I think that's like the most powerful thing, especially within like the quantum and circadian community, because I truly believe that there's going to be a shift. There is already a shift that's occurring, but as collectively together we begin to develop like resources and education and models and systems and ways of being that can be integrated into what you might call mainstream, like at an institutional level.
Mhm.
It is like the collective accountability and the collective responsibility of everybody that's achieved this. We all have a part to play. And this is something that I'm always really, really keen on saying to people, is like, people look up to us and be there like, you've done an amazing thing. And I'm there like, you're doing an amazing thing by being here, by talking about it, by,
I love that.
each of us
Yeah.
has an opportunity to like take accountability and generate like passion and purpose and drive and change ultimately.
Mhm.
So yes, thank you for everybody listening, as well as the two of you for hosting
Yeah,
this.
that's a good point. Everybody who's listening, right? Who is in the same unit, the same collective, the same movement, the same, the same momentum, That's so true. I love that. Mm.
Yeah, I hear your gratitude. It's beautiful. I hear your
Yeah.
spiritual I hear your spiritual journey and all that you mentioned earlier. I want to touch back on that later if you're open to talking about it, Daniel. And also about the study. Can you give us sort of like the highlights of the outcomes? I know you said that the research didn't exactly go perfectly the way you wanted to do the data collection, but I would love to still know what were the outcomes.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I'll give you the kind of overall overview of the study. So what I did was strong-armed my way into the school system in Guernsey, and I doubt anybody listening to this will know where Guernsey is or what we are as a nation, as a place. I live on a very small island, which is in between the UK and France, and it's a population of about 60,000 people, and we like to like jokingly call ourselves testbed nation because we're just the perfect kind of size where, I know the politicians and I know the heads of the education departments, and I can walk
Mhm.
into the school and, there's not bodyguards everywhere and things like
Mhm.
that.
That's nice, a small community. I like it.
Yeah, it works. I mean, it's great for some things. It's more challenging for others. But in the case of, what we did, it was very supportive. And so what I did was over quite a long period of time, I was the crazy guy with a tinfoil hat on, trying to convince people that they should really let me come in and, give my time and resources freely to do something that can support children and that's got evidence behind it. And eventually we got there, and I had the support of a wonderful mentor, who unfortunately I always say that as he who cannot be named. Unfortunately, I can't name him because it was an unofficial academic supporter. And we landed in this kind of study design, something called an open level waitlist study. So instead of providing placebos in the forms of the glasses, what we decided to do was recruit all the children from 7 schools, 7 major schools in Guernsey, recruit as many kids as we could, age 14 up to 18, and then we split them into different groups. And so what we did in the first group was we gave them pairs of amber lens blue light blocking glasses. We gave them, just said, blue light, bad, okay, wear these glasses, gonna be fine, great. Next group, we did the same, but I went in and developed 2 really simple, like 45 to 60-minute education program classes relating to sleep and circadian science. So the first one, a little bit about circadian rhythms, a little bit about light exposure, movement, temperature, all of these sorts of, needle movers, zeitgebers, as we call them. And then in the second workshop, I really like to give people like theory and understanding and then bring it together in like a practical 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's look at your day from when you wake up until you go to bed and think about how we perhaps don't necessarily make huge changes, but just rearrange how we do things a little bit. And so that was what we provided in the second group, as a combination of those 2 interventions. And in the third group, we just gave the education. So they did learn about blue light and, how to filter light from phones and laptops and computers, but they didn't have a pair of the nighttime glasses themselves. And then in the fourth group, um, I mean, they got it eventually, but unfortunately, they all got put on a wait list. So it was like, just continue, do as you do.
Mm.
And in order to study the impact, what we wanted to do was really look at sleep outcomes, because, sleep is very hot in the zeitgeist right now. Sleep science, and thankfully, circadian science is, really emerging at the forefront of sleep science, I believe.
Mhm.
And so we took these questionnaires, and in these questionnaires, we asked different questions that related to sleep quality, sleep consistency, levels of stress and anxiety before bedtime, and levels of alertness and focus the next day. And so we interviewed everybody and took questionnaires at day 0, and then we repeated the questionnaire 2 weeks later. So during that 2 week period is when they received the education and had the glasses. And then we asked them to complete it again a further 2 weeks later. So we had this snapshot of like 0, day 14, day 28. So we began with about 479, I think. I might be butchering that, 413. So many numbers go through my mind. Anyway, we started with quite a few kids, good couple of hundred. As always expected in field research, like average attrition rates are about 30% per kind of questionnaire. You get kind of dropouts. One of the challenges that we had were between questionnaire 1 and 2, so day 0 to 14, really good follow through, data really clear. And
Mm.
then we had an outbreak of COVID in 2 of the schools. So between day
Mm.
14 and day 28, the second group, which was the combined intervention, we kind of lost most of those. So this is kind of a little bit of how the data looked. Going in, average sleep scores, because the schools existed in different socioeconomic groups. There was a little bit of a difference between some of the schools to begin with. So these questionnaires, and I'm gonna give you like an overview. These aren't specific numbers, but just to give you a bit of a mental model to build here. Like, you know, the questionnaires range from a score of 0 to 5, 0 being like sleep's absolutely woeful, worst in the world, to 5 is like 100%. Most children began at kind of like a 2.9 to like a 3.5 around there. And what we saw, like by the end of the study, was about a point climb for those who use the glasses. Um,
That's great.
Maybe like a 0.8, 0.9 climb, about a full point climb for the combined intervention group in the first 2 weeks when we got our data back from them.
Mhm.
About half that improvement in the education only group, and then actually like a decline in sleep in the sleep scores in the control group, which we can't quite figure that out. Perhaps stressful periods
Mm.
that have
Yeah.
been happening within the school, like etc. And then we repeated it again. And what was really good is that we had a really, really high percentage of follow through for group A, so the blue light blocking glasses group. So we saw actually like a continued improvement by the fourth week mark in that group. And I think we managed to sustain about 90% of the participation from the first like follow-up questionnaire to the second one. As I said, with the second group, the combined intervention group, we lost a large majority of those because of the COVID outbreak and things like that. And then in the other two groups, again, we lost about 30% per questionnaire, but we still had, stronger groups. Sorry, quite strong data to show. So overall, we ran like a lot of statistical analysis, which, a lot of it goes over my head, but I understand it when I see it in the report. Is that we saw statistically significant improvements basically across all of the variables for the first two groups. A lot of them for the third group as well, actually, pointing in an upward trend towards like improvement from the education, but it was really clear that that combined intervention, like education with glasses, which is like theory plus practice, right? It makes so much sense. Like tell people the theory, you give them the practical tools, they marry it together, and amazing things happen. So yeah, the results of it really, really, really kind of blew our minds. I mean, I love to say I told you so. To people that I told so, and yeah, the process over the last year has been like analyzing the data, ensuring it's robust, writing it up into a study. All of those things take a lot of time. So we're at the point now where we decided not to try and publish it academically because of just some, I don't want to say flaws, but some of the like challenges with the data. And I'm sure that someone could say, oh well, the statistical power of your second group wasn't as powerful as it could be because of factors outside of my control. But it puts us in a really great position because I think what we've done now is, and sadly, the next stages of this probably won't be happening where I live in Guernsey because it's
Mm.
it's one of those things you have to. Someone told me once, you have to be ready to pull on the next loose brick.
Mm.
Right now, the schools that did participate 2 years ago, where I am in Guernsey, aren't interested actually in participating at the moment.
Mm.
However, that gives us an opportunity to look further afield, and what's kind of been flowing through us recently is this idea that well, we now have this collective of ambassadors, people who within their own right, people like Alexis Cowan, looking at opening her light lab,
Mm.
Alexis, if you're listening to this, I'm coming to El Salvador to talk to you about it soon.
Oh, are you
Um,
going to the event? Are they having an event?
I'm going to Kira Lee's solar culture
Oh
retreat.
yeah, oh yeah. That sounds lovely.
Hmm.
Be great, and it's going to be a really good opportunity for like a few of us to sit down and talk big about visions for the future. And I would really like to pull together people like Daylight Co,
Hmm.
bringing new innovative technology, Viva Rays and their incredible lens technology, Alexis and her experience in the academic world, and it may not be these players specifically, but with everything that's happening in the US now, okay, it's like I did that alone. It went well, could have gone better. Imagine if there was, a group of us
Yeah.
with sources who could develop a global cross-continent piece of research that demonstrates the viability and the impact of these things to a point at which we could institutionalize these interventions on a cosmic scale. I'm just
Yeah.
going to
Big, massive scale.
um,
Yeah, like
so
where every kid was wearing blue blockers at night. I mean, imagine how that would go, and imagine how that would change the trajectory of the world. Like it's just that's an incredible vision. Like I just it's amazing. I love it because it's hard. Like it's hard for me to get my kids buy-in when they're wearing orange glasses and then they feel like an outsider. Like that's the issue, really. It's not really that they don't want to wear the orange glasses, it's they feel different than their
yeah,
other peers who aren't. So if it's like everybody's doing it, then they'll feel, yeah, obviously this is the, regular science, right? Everybody's doing, you're going to feel more you're not going to feel like your own island. You're going to feel like it's okay. So I feel like that would be amazing if the more we can do that and getting into this larger scale. But I mean, amazingly, you had great results even on the small scale that you did, right? So that's awesome. So I mean, if not surprisingly, of course, but I mean, it's just great. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you always have outliers, right? Like, if you divide up, when I think back to like, I always laugh and say one of the schools that I went in to give some education, they basically said, whether or not the children are involved in the study, we want everyone to receive the education. So, you're going to
Mm.
come into this to a school hall, there's going to be 400 kids there. So I'm there like, yep, game on, let's go. And I arrived to deliver the education to the children, and you got like 20% of them are sat there, like arms crossed, looking at me like, oh, I can't wait to learn this. 20% of the children are like asleep. Like
Yeah,
literally,
yeah. I
ready.
was
I
a
mean,
teacher, believe me, I understand that.
and then you've got 60% who are kind of like with it, kind of not, probably need a bit more evidence, need a bit more. And so it's definitely, a pie in the sky idea that everyone's going to click their fingers and adopt this stuff. But I think what's important is like social proof. We all know how important
Mhm.
that is. And just like a slow shifting in the paradigm to the point at which we have early adopters who are willing to be there, like, yeah, I'll try it. And I always tell this story of one of the things that really, one of those like whispers that kind of came to me in terms of pivoting from working pretty much exclusively with adults and businesses and corporations about 4 years ago to beginning to sort of create a mosaic of supporting children and all the schools work was that I was working with a family, and I'd gone in to coach this husband and wife, and they said, we're sleeping poorly, we're directors of this standard ordeal, Western world, high profile, jobs, lots of stress, lots of winding down in front of the television in the evening, etc. Can you help us? And I said, yeah, of course I can. And then they said, well, actually, we really want our kids involved in this. And so I said, yeah, no problem. Okay. So, we sort them all out, pair of blue light blocking glasses. We have a couple of conversations. The weeks roll on, and I turn up at this family's house. It's literally Guernsey to a T, right? All of my coaching I used to do in person at people's houses. It was quite fun. And I sat down with them and I was like, oh, so, checking in. How's the last week or so been? Have you tried your blue light blocking glasses? Have you been wearing them? And you got the husband and the wife going like, oh yeah, and like I put them on once or something like that. And then like the kids, one of them is about 11, the other one's about 13, and they're nodding, looking at me, going, yeah, yeah, these things really work, don't they?
I love it.
Looking at their parents, and they're like almost like shocked and like bemused, and they're like, why have you not been wearing them?
Right. I was actually thinking when you were presenting that information to the schools, were the teachers there and the administrators there? Were they listening to this talk that you gave on circadian rhythm and realizing that they have just circadian rhythm dysfunction and they probably could use a pair of blue light blocking glasses?
Yeah, they did all get them. We were kind. We gave
Oh,
lots of
good. That's nice. I'm
evidence.
glad.
But yeah, it was just that realization that, oh, okay, so, and this comes back to that spiritual conversation, perhaps, how we develop like very strongly held beliefs about ourselves and what we're capable of and the level of health and wealth and success and happiness that we think that we deserve. And so these amazing interventions come in and maybe we don't like adopt them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it takes a tragedy or an inspiring moment of like, consciousness expansion to finally get it, but not with kids. Kids
Yeah,
are
they
there
don't
like,
have
I
skinny
want to
jeans.
feel good.
Yeah, yeah.
Like if you can give like, a child a drink that gives them loads of energy, or you give them a drink that makes them feel crap. Maybe not the best example because there's not a lot of choice in that with the way that our taste buds and our brains work. But the point is, children don't want to feel bad. And if you give them an option, as long as, like you said, it's not going to socially outcast them. And so,
Yes.
for example, of this family, the kids are there like, well, why would you not want to feel 10, 15, 20% better or whatever? And that was the moment when I realized, okay, so actually, if I really want to make a shift here, like on adults, maybe I need to access it through children or like through that.
Mm.
And it is funny because, there's been lots of people that have supported our work, but still won't support themselves. And I kind of put them to one side at the moment and I say, right, okay, so I found the golden ticket. And I think again, it's pulling that loose brick, right? It's going where your energy is welcomed, reciprocated, and requested.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Well,
Beautiful.
so, oh my gosh, so much there to unpack. Thank you for sharing the study. And
Yes.
I look forward to any future, research you're doing and collaboration. And like you said, getting together the big, Alexis and all the folks, I mean, the masterminding you guys can do is going to be really cool to see what unfolds. And I'm just really, really excited and hopeful for the future. So I can't wait to hear what the outcome. I'll see it online, I'm sure. Some of the feedback from that. But so I was thinking about, Daniel, when you're talking about the spiritual and the emotional and whatnot, I think it's like I hope people start to realize more and more as they learn about the quantum aspects of health that when your body is inflamed, right, the more it's almost like the more calcified you get, the more brittle you get, the more tension you hold in your body because your body is in a compromised state, right? Energy is not flowing, you're not making energy, you're not gathering energy. Your circadian rhythm is not working properly, it's not optimized, that will lead to emotional and then spiritual problems. So why don't you just help our audience know, like, what were the specific circadian rhythm disruptions? Like you mentioned, you felt kind of down, like you were maybe emotionally didn't feel as resilient. I don't know how would you describe where you were at then, and then how you see yourself now because you've been following your circadian aligned lifestyle?
Yeah, really great questions. Thank you so much, Heather. So I like to think of it a little bit like this. I've got a lot of friends where I live in Guernsey, and everybody has their own unique gifts that they bring. And when I
Mm.
say friends, what I mean is practitioners, people who are working in the health and wellbeing space, and fantastic people who are doing things like, energy healing, Reiki, emotional freedom technique, tapping stuff, Shen therapy, biofield tuning, plant medicine, like loads of, incredible, like what you might call like spiritual therapies, or mind body therapies, or in functional medicine we always used to say that there's a very unique key for everybody's lock, and you will find what works
Mm.
for you, and trust me, I've tried a lot of stuff,
Mhm.
and some of it really resonated with me, and some of it for whatever reason didn't at the time. That doesn't mean that it won't for other people. But
Hmm.
one thing that I really noticed is that um when you're working on an energetic level, it brings a lot of stuff up, right? And you've got to make sure that there's somewhere for that to go.
Mhm.
In quite literally, the clearest sense, it needs to be grounded. That energy needs to be
Mm.
transmuted somewhere, given back to the cosmos or the earth or wherever, right? And so I went through these periods of trying all this stuff for years, and it was all really chaotic. And I'd have like trauma from childhood come up, and it would like almost destabilize me, and I really didn't know what to do with a lot of it. And I really found that after I began to like focus a lot more on like my circadian health, as well as having like the nutrition and a little bit of breath work and meditation dialed in and things like that, I seemed to integrate and like receive the wisdom from those experiences a lot more
Mm.
plainly and clearly, and things made sense a lot more. And I used to look around, and I still look around, and I try and encourage everybody. I say to them, you can do as much plant medicine as you want, you can go to as many therapy sessions as you want, but if you don't have these very basic foundational tenets, which is your circadian health in check, then like your energy systems, they're not going to transmute that. And I'm not going to pretend for a second to know anywhere near as much as many incredible people, and probably yourselves, relating to trauma in the body and water and fascia and like the quantum like elements of all of that stuff. But I felt it in myself, I really, really did. And another thing that became really, really clear to me, especially in the last, few years, and I'm not talking as an enlightened being whatsoever, because I've had many of my own challenges. I've had my own challenges with addiction, with escapism, with, self-soothing. When I was young, I was born of two parents who did the absolute best that they could, based on their parents doing the absolute best that they could, and I was left with my own flavor of experience to use to grow and evolve. And what I came to learn over the years is that, and I hope that this resonates with some people, and I wish that somebody had told me this years before I realized it, is that you can block all the blue light in the world, and you can watch every sunrise, and you can eat seasonally, and you can do your breath work, and you can avoid toxins, and you can quit drinking and all of those sorts of things. But if you don't deal with like what you're holding on to on like an emotional, energetic, mental and spiritual level, you might just um objectively rely on things outside of yourself,
Mm.
that sense of completion. And I look back now and I realized that you know, everybody's experiences mold them into who they are. And, you know, would I have taken it upon myself to try and do such grand things if I didn't feel good enough in the body that I was in and the mind and the state at that time? Probably not. And so, you know, that's been
Mm.
an incredible thing is that, you know, I've been driven by my, you know, insecurities or driven by um the challenges I experienced, especially around self-acceptance and, you know,
Mm.
love of self, which I think that everybody can probably relate to on, you know, some continuum, right? And so like I find it very interesting. I've been reading Elon Musk's autobiography recently. I thought it apt with everything going on, particularly politically in the US. And, you know, it's really caused me to reflect on hardship and how, again, like, you know, the hardship when it's resolved in the support of like a community and like a movement and a vision, and especially when nature is involved because of how inherently decentralized nature is, and you know, nature is nobody's guru, but everybody's guru
Yeah.
at the same
I love
time.
that.
So like in that way, I've realized that, you know, um, everybody can use those experiences to generate like a profound sense of accountability to the creation of a better world for themselves, their families, their communities, and everything like that. So just really paying, you know, a lot of respect to the unseen forces and the unfelt
Mm.
emotions and the, you know, unprocessed experiences as, you know, our ally and our wisdom keeper as well.
Mhm.
Oh, thank you for your vulnerability. That's so beautiful. I mean, I love it all. But I see it time and time again, and I've seen it in myself. The more that you are connected, the more that you have the safety of nature, your nervous system becomes more balanced. Like you have all of this in line. Your circadian rhythms are aligned. You're connected to nature, you're connected to the collective, like to everyone, to all the people, the community. Like you just are able to like receive the downloads, but you're also just able to like have better stress resilience and move through things in a much easier capacity. And the things that come up, like the trauma or the things that we've dealt with, because everybody deals with trauma on some level, we move through them with more grace, ease, wisdom, clarity, like in knowing what to do with that and how it moves us in the directions we're needing to go. Like, so everything was just so beautiful. I love it.
When nature expands, doesn't it? You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and like absence of nature contracts to the point at which, you know, isolation results in an inability to like shift, especially
Mhm.
it's like deeply held emotional experiences. So yeah, big shout out to nature, Mother Nature. What a big
Yeah. We're so lucky to have that. Always.
So tell us about how, like, I just am so keen to know about the CRD challenge and what you're like. It was obviously a worldwide effort. You had 5,000 people enroll, which is amazing. I mean, yes, we could have more, but I think that's a great start. And a collaborative effort for sure. And what are your takeaways now from the CRD challenge? Like what are the things that are emerging for you like, oh, and insights and awareness and just personally and professionally, like where are you at with that now?
The first thing I want to say is that I am so, and I think I speak on behalf of myself, Avi, Jeff, and Lauren when I say that I'm so glad that we didn't have more people participate.
Oh my God, I love that. It's actually nicer sometimes when it's an intimate community, right? It's a smaller
Yeah.
community. Yeah.
Well, you know, we decided, at least for this iteration, and you know, if you're listening to this, you can most certainly still get involved in this iteration, that we would deliver the challenge through school. I don't know if you guys have been on the school community or you got your
Yes,
own.
it's amazing. The videos are amazing. Everything is done really, really at a high level. It's incredible. So, yeah.
And what school facilitates is like an online classroom, right? You know, where people can stick their hand up and ask questions, and the teacher can share resources and information. And you know,
Mhm.
you've got your textbooks in the form of your videos in your classroom section, and the calendar tells you what's on at school next week. And so it seemed like it was the perfect place for us to launch it in a very intimate way with the community. But obviously, when you get like 3,000 people in a group together and you say to them, ask us whatever questions you'd like, and we'll support you, endlessly, which I'm very proud to say that we've done. It's
That's an effort. That's a big effort,
a
though.
lot, and waking up every day with like 150 DMs in your email inbox and 200 notifications to deal with, it was challenging, and in this case, and always for us, really, like work is worship, and so absolutely, I don't
Mm.
begrudge that at all. But if you had given us another 3,000 people in the group, it might have become unmanageable at that point. And obviously, the great thing about that was that we could take feedback, and and I will say this very proudly, like the few pieces of constructive feedback that we've had are more like, put together some Q&As based on the questions that were asked. Oh, great. That's something that we can very easily do. Oh, it would have been nice to learn a tiny bit more about this. Great. We'll include, one more interview from one more expert. But the idea was that the CRD challenge, we wanted it to be a bite-sized, step-by-step learning journey. So we designed it as 21 days. Some people can take the CRD challenge in a week. Some people will take the CRD challenge in 21 months. We had to define a time because people like to name and tame and all that sort of thing.
Yep.
But ultimately, every week we wanted to like take people deeper and deeper down into Alice in Wonderland, down the rabbit hole, right? And so based on like the principles that we know of, human behavioral change, it's kind of like, okay, so first you know nothing, and then you start to become more conscious of something, but it takes a lot of thought, a lot of consideration, and then it takes less consideration, and then it becomes like automatic. So, let's honor how we learn and evolve as human beings, or at least the majority of us, because there are some, special and gifted people out there. And then let's like dissect what are like the most important initial needle movers. And some people would argue that, oh, it's all important, and everyone needs to know all of it straight away. But it's like, yes. And those of us listening to these podcasts, reading these books, following the Cruises and the Hubermans and the amazing, fantastic educators and scientists, we can probably bet that we're more prepared to receive and absorb that information than others. But you go out into the main population, and it's like, people are busy, people are overwhelmed, people are addicted, people are, blue light toxic, people are so socio-culturally embedded in life that it's like, hold my pinky finger. Let's just go for a walk around the block first.
Yep.
And so, with the help of Nico Kennedy, big shout out to Nico. We basically developed a curriculum over a course of 3 weeks, where in the first week we would teach people. I normally run it up in here and say you have to come inside to know this, but we've had the challenge now, so I can tell you. The first week we really focused on morning and evening. So like looking at, the artificial light environment in the evening, filtering, reducing, dimming, blocking the light, understanding, circadian rhythms, that cortisol melatonin relationship, what artificial light at night is doing, what lux is, what wavelength is, what do we mean when we say different colors and different strengths and all of this sort of stuff. And then really helping people to understand the importance of being outdoors, basically as soon as possible from when you open your eyes in the morning. And so we kind of started there, and it was kind of like, well, how do we do the blue light blocking glasses thing? Because we want people to use them, but this is also a free challenge. And so we tried throughout to make people aware of the fact that, fundamentally circadian health is free, but we've kind of created contexts and situations in which we may need some tools to support us on that journey. And so we're really fortunate and grateful to have been supported. Our community's been supported by Viva Rays, Block Blue Light, places like this. In the second week, we wanted to expand, so helping people to understand, about UVA rise and about full spectrum light during the daytime, and the challenges of indoor lighting, and how we can begin to bring that full spectrum indoors for those of us that can't get outdoors. A little bit about chrononutrition as well. So this idea of, curtailing that evening meal just a little bit earlier, a little bit earlier. So beginning to like layer these behaviors, stack them one by one by one by one. Rome wasn't built in a day. In the third week, we really dove deep down the, what for a long time has been a bit of a tin foil hat covered rabbit hole for people, is like grounding and earthing, and then looking at like electromagnetism and tying it always back to the peer reviewed research, bringing it back to circadian rhythms, and trying to position it in a way in which, if we were going to be scrutinized by an academic, we had the science, we had the papers, we had the research. We're not sharing theories here, we're sharing published research and, guiding people on simple steps. And obviously, there are some people who join the community who are there like, oh, I know all this stuff. Yeah, that's great. Well, help us to tell other people about it. But the vast majority of people who joined, they really appreciated the bite-sized nature, the slow, gradual development of these like skills and habits. And obviously what you have at the end of that period is, a variety of people who engage in a variety of ways. But like the most common result is somebody who's very curious about other things,
Mhm.
about, the quantum and circadian nature of health generally, and who, becomes like a mini torchbearer of their own. So one of the nicest things, we pretty much stopped just in the wake of like the sheer chaos that was running the first couple of weeks of the challenge. We kind of stopped advertising it a little bit, but it's
Mhm.
been beautiful to see that we've had hundreds and hundreds of people continue to come and join the group as a result of just like testimonial, referral, review. And that's like, that's the initial idea, was let's drop the stone in the ocean and create the ripple in the wave. And
Yes, yes.
and we're so grateful to everybody who not only like participated, but those who supported us to develop the materials. I mean, we interviewed so many wonderful experts like Alexis, Martin Morey, Kelsey Dexter, Stephen Hussey helped us out with a bit of recording. Who else? Max Goldhain got involved, Dr. Jacob Lieberman.
Mm.
I'm probably going to forget people here because it's getting towards the end of the day. But we interviewed Rudy, we interviewed Dan Ebbett from Not Blue Light, we interviewed Tristan Scott, we interviewed Dr. Laura Conover, who's like a grounding and earthing expert. We interviewed Sarah Kleiner. Like so much, like little bits of bite-sized content that people could just check in and out of when they felt it necessary. And so I think we've struck on a pretty good model. Where to next, I suppose, is maybe something we can discuss.
Where are you going next?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Personally, El Salvador this time of 1 week. Yeah, it's getting into the British winter here, and after a period of spending a lot of time indoors, like glued to my computer screen, running the challenge and developing it, I'm really looking forward to a bit of time off.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll need some nice sunshine, right? And some days on walking on the beach for sure.
I won't be wearing any shoes for a week, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And then yeah, where next? Well, we're really just taking stock of like and trying to step back and be there, like let's just have gratitude for what's happened here, because it's very easy to be there like, right, next thing, keep going, keep going, keep pushing, more people, should have been more, could have been more,
Mm.
spend
Yeah.
all of it, and just bask in like the magnitude of the fact that I only met Jeff Gibson 6 months ago, and he was there like, dude, we should do this circadian challenge. And then you look forward 6 months and it's like, dude, we did that circadian challenge.
It's like amazing. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, and so obviously, we want to run iterations of the challenge. To anyone listening, it is available. It's evergreen. You can join at any time. You can ask questions in the community. We're there to support you. You can take it at your own pace. Chew on it at the pace that's good for you. We want to continue to consider how we can use it as like the best way I can describe it is like a lead generator for quantum and circadian biology, right? It brings people into like the ecosystem, right? It creates a bigger pie for like all of the educators and all of the people who are passionate about sharing that knowledge, so that we can reach more and more and more people. Because sometimes, not always, but sometimes we do get stuck in a bit of an echo chamber. It might be the algorithms like stopping us from getting out of that chamber, but only time will tell. Bobby Kennedy, if you're listening to this, come and sort that out. But yeah, like the future, we're looking now at in the new year, really focusing on the development of like a broader, longer program that we can do in schools.
Mm.
The CID challenge will be an ever going ongoing thing. We now have the QNTMLY community, so yeah, probably introduce QNTMLY. QNTMLY is the umbrella that the four of us, me, Avi, Jeff, and Lauren, come under. So the idea was that we wanted to educate people on circadian and quantum biological aspects of health and well-being, which obviously includes a lot of the circadian rhythm and the light and the grounding and things like that. But now we have this kind of ongoing school community where every week we're bringing experts such as you two, and a host of other people in to talk about topics, that you may not have considered to have like a quantum aspect, which is, crazy when you really know what the definition of quantum biology is, because it's everything, everywhere, all times, past, present, future. But beginning to discuss like nutrition, beginning to look more deeply into like the electromagnetic stuff and like technology and creating better relationships with technology. Bringing people in for panel discussions where we're talking about like the future of lighting, or circadian and quantum approaches to like mental health, and just so much that we can explore. And we're really trying to do two things, I guess, which is bring and continue to bring the community together, in terms of like practitioners and people who are educating, and then also bringing in like, people who are learning and people who are growing and people who are supportive of this movement, so that like in time, it's going to take a lot more than four people. It's going to take a lot more than 100 people, right, to create this big shift. But that's where it really begins, I think. So developing community was always like our intention, so that, the work can be held by many hands.
Hmm. Yeah, it's an ongoing evolution, right? Of deepening and expanding and just connecting. And it's basically that, as you say, like describe it, and I think of how it starts to expand quantumly. It's a quantum process, basically. So we just trust in the process and we follow our hearts and we follow the light and it all works out. That's my hope is that, and I know that if we all focus on what feels good, like you said with the children, like they know what feels good and they know what doesn't feel good. And I think sometimes we lose our way in all the things that distract us from the essence of what's the point of being alive. It's to create goodness and try to help people and right have harmony. And so, yeah, we have to have hardship to learn, but it doesn't need to be extreme like some of the things we witness nowadays. So this movement that the four of you are creating, I look at it as kind of an overarching umbrella that can encompass everyone's efforts somehow, right? We need a way to all connect and have sort of a guiding, something that guides us. So, because otherwise we're just all doing our own thing. Not that we're fragmented because we're not, because we're all part of the whole, but how can we all coalesce and find a way to be more strong in coming together and coordinating our efforts? I think there's something to be said for that. So I love that you're working with Nico and that, it's just like how can we have everyone pooling our resources and energy together because that's going to create a stronger ripple effect, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, like quite literally, like you said, it's a quantum process, and I'm not pretending for any second to have all of the answers, and there's definitely a lot of grandeur going on with my thought processes at the moment, which I'm happy to indulge in. Um, but like as we go forward, I mean, I would hope that collectively, um, the world, somebody somewhere, we as a species develop, like I said, the infrastructure to provide this education at a fundamental level, whether it's for kindergarten or young children, teenagers, adolescents, organizations, businesses, hospitals, institutions. And then when you get to that point of having that, well, guess what? We went and trained a lot of people to deliver some pretty wacky education about a lot of not that scientific topics over the last 50, 60 years. So we may also at some point need to collaborate with a lot of people who are passionate and interested in providing education to get this message out there. So, you know, we're always trying to take our next step with the goal in mind, with like the future in mind. And, we're not, I can say very clearly right now, we're not like here trying to generate community to make revenue and money. But what we're really trying to do is, bring people together and to bring us onto a playing field where, everybody has a voice. The great thing about like community is that, when you sit around in a circle together, and you invite people to join you in that circle, we all become equals. We all have
Mm.
equal opportunities. And you can also say no. You can say, for whatever reason, I don't want to be at the party tonight. Maybe you never want to come to the party. But like I always say to that person, just to let you know, you're always invited to the party. So maybe you don't want to come to the party this weekend, but maybe you want to come to the party in the future. Or maybe you never, maybe you host your other party and, we'll tell stories to each other about how great our parties were and we'll support each other and, you know, without a competitive nature. But I think that's what's really important, because that sense of like collective um, responsibility is generated by that, very like horizontal approach.
Mm.
And of course, what we really, or what I really like to see us as is like community builders.
Mm.
So really like, it's an honor to do that because there is so many gifts and there's so much beauty and there's so much passion recognized and unrecognized in all of the people that we're getting the opportunity to meet. And so, if we can support the emergence of that in the community, which, most certainly is, it's not us doing alone. I look at how I got here, the Quantum Biology Collective, what an incredible, beautiful, selfless community, and everybody who's contributed towards their work. And so there are these micro communities everywhere. But we're trying to say, let's all recognize that we are one giant community, like you said, one part of the whole, and that together we can go, unimaginably far.
Hmm. Yeah, it's such a beautiful vision and such a beautiful mission that you guys are on, and everything that you're doing is just it's incredible. It's selfless. It's just amazing. So it's really I just commend you guys for everything that you guys are doing, and happy to be a part of it in any way that we can help support. Like that's beautiful. And anybody who's listening, like you said, the CRD challenge is something you can join literally anytime, correct? It doesn't never, right? So you can jump on in, join the school anytime. We will absolutely have the links down below to join. So please do that. So you can be a part of the movement too. You can be a part of the whole ripple effect. And then you can carry the torch and share with other people and share the knowledge. So this grows and gets bigger and bigger and bigger, right? That's the whole vision. So yeah, I can't wait to see where it continues to go because I already am like immensely excited and proud of the things that you guys have done, but I can't wait to see how it continues. So
Yeah, quite literally, the best part is nobody knows.
nobody does know, but yeah. But I think I have a good feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, that good feeling is important, and I don't know how to best describe this. Okay, so feeling is what got me here, right? Like I'm a person who is traditionally throughout a lot of my life been disconnected from feeling.
Mm,
Childhood stuff. Lived a lot of my life in my head, but I have this capacity to feel when I sit with myself, and I did a lot when I was developing the program for the schools. I was doing a lot of work around Joe Dispenza and like his meditations and, like the quantum implication of thought and belief and emotion. Um, and I would sit every morning, I would sit down on my meditation cushion, right? And I'm not professing to be some, avid meditator either, because I'm not necessarily. But at that time period in my life, which was like, I don't know what I'm doing here, but I feel like this is the thing to do. I would
yeah.
sit down, I would do this meditation every morning, and I would like summon, or at least like convince myself that I had summoned and was feeling these emotions of like gratitude and love and like expansion and limitlessness. And I'd imagine, having people around me supporting it and it all coming together. And like, I mean, I can just thank the capacity that I have as a human being to feel those things,
Mm,
because that is what allowed me to, you know, move forward with things. And we all have that capacity. Maybe we don't recognize it within ourselves innately. And when we come together, I mean, again, one of the reasons I just can't wait to see where it goes in terms of the community in the future is because collectively that energy becomes so strong and so positive, And so,
Absolutely.
mm.
For those who want that energy, who want to join in, as we start to wrap up here, Daniel, where do you want them to start first? Tell them where to go to join us.
yeah, really great question. So, I mean, you can find us on socials, Instagram mainly at the moment, at the CRD, Circadian Rhythm Disruption, that stands for challenge, and also at QNTMLY, which is actually QNTMLY. So it's an abbreviated version, although I'm not sure. Yeah, I think everything's active on there now. And then internet wise, go to the crdchallenge.com. So that's the first place you really want to land, learn what the CRD challenge is, have a little look at the video that we put together with, like I said, a lot of the interviews from the experts and such like that. Come into the CRD ecosystem if you want, become a member of the community of the tribe, carry the torch. Certain people arrive in that community and they want more, like already instantly. they know a lot already, or they're just very curious, very ambitious when it comes to their learning. So we say to them, come and join us in the quantum community. Come and, watch every week. We stream the expert sessions live in the CRD Challenge community. And then if people want for like a very low cost, they can join the quantum community, which gives them like direct access to the experts and to the team and a little bit more, support in exchange for their support of us as well. So the CRD Challenge is the first place to come, land there, make yourself at home.
Perfect. Wonderful. Well, any parting words of wisdom as we end the show? We're so grateful for you and your time and just sharing your heart with us and all the knowledge that you've accumulated and you're just, I mean, you're quite a force. I know you're very modest, but I'm still in awe of all the things that you've accomplished, Daniel. So
Yes,
anything,
agreed.
all right.
Thank
So
you.
anything you want to leave our listeners with?
I just follow the feeling.
I love it.
That's perfect. Oh. If it resonates, go for it, right? I love that. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Daniel. We really, really appreciate the time in the chat, like Heather said. And we look forward to seeing what grows in the future and what comes up.
Thank you so much both for having me.